Good evening and welcome to tonight's virtual primary election forum, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Whidbey Island and Snow Isle Libraries. My name is Carla Grau-Egerton and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Whidbey Island. I'm our forum committee chair and will be this evening's moderator. My fellow panelist, in addition to the candidates, is Joanna Rooms, timekeeper. Our local league co-president, Carol Pulliam, is our Zoom platform manager, and Karen Bolstad is providing additional technical support. Our audience tonight reaches beyond Whidbey Island. The leagues of Skagit and Snohomish counties have joined us for this event so that voters who are Legislative District 10 constituents in their areas can also hear from the candidates participating in this evening's forum. Welcome all. I'd also like to welcome the candidates participating in tonight's forum. Named in alphabetical order for Legislative District 10, Position 1, they are Greg Gilday and Clyde Shavers. For Position 2, they are Karen Lesetmoe and Dave Paul. For County Commissioner District 3, they are Rick Hannold, Timothy Hazelo, and Janet St. Clair. All the candidates received copies of our league's forum policy and forum format and ground rules documents, as well as recording releases. For the benefit of our audience, I'll simply say these documents outline the structure of our forums, expectations for civil discourse, and our league's commitment to treat all participants with fairness and respect. I appreciate the candidates' willingness to participate in this important voter information event. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We endeavor to make democracy work by offering events like this, by registering voters, and much more. If you're interested in our work, join us. Go to our website at www.lwvwhidbey.org and become a member today. The library's mission is to provide resources to the community for lifelong learning. Our partnership enables us to pool our resources to provide neutral and unbiased information to the public. Visit their website at www.snowisle.org to learn about all their services. Tonight's forum will consist of two segments. The first will feature the candidates for Legislative District 10, Positions 1 and 2. The second segment will feature the candidates for County Commissioner District 3. The format for this evening will be standard Q&A. The questions have been selected in advance by our forum committee from those submitted to us by league members and the public. None of the questions have been disclosed to the candidates prior to opening this forum. The moderator will pose all the questions. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer all questions. The order of the candidates in respect to questions has been determined in advance by the league organizers to ensure a random and fair sequence. The first responder to a question will have 90 seconds to answer. The remaining candidates will have 60 seconds to answer. The timekeeper will signal when 15 seconds remain by showing a yellow card and a red card when time is up. Candidates will not pose questions of each other or engage in personal attacks of other candidates during their responses. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. For further information about the candidates and to see their responses to a different set of questions, visit the League of Women Voters of Washington website at www.vote411.org. This forum is being recorded by the League. A link for viewing it will be posted on our website. No other recording is permitted. The League adheres strictly to the requirements of the FCC regarding use of recordings. Any use of the recording requires approval by the League of Women Voters of Whidbey Island, and then with the caveat that it must be broadcast in its entirety. No candidate is allowed to edit or use the footage for campaign purposes. We will begin with the questions for the candidates for Legislative District 10, positions 1 and 2. When they have concluded with their closing statements, we will transition to the candidates for County Commissioner, District 3. Let's begin. LD10 representative job description. State representatives introduce and vote on bills that represent the interests of their constituents. They create new laws, modify or update old laws, and serve on research committees within the legislative branch. These representatives uphold the state's constitution and vote on changes to the constitution when amendments are needed. They address issues such as education, transportation, commerce, and state taxes. Now we will go to question number 1. And we will start with position 1, Greg Gilday.
Okay, I didn't know if you were going to read the question or not. So the question is—
I'm so sorry. What strategies would you propose to make college, trade school, and apprenticeship programs more available and affordable?
Thank you for that question. And I just want to take a minute to thank the League of Women Voters and the Snow Isle Libraries for putting on this forum tonight. And I do appreciate being able to be here and for the opportunity to speak. So as far as trade schools and apprenticeship programs and colleges making it more affordable, I think what we really need to look at is first that neither of the tracks are going to be right for all people. We need to get more people involved in things that they are going to be interested in earlier in their school careers. In Snohomish County, in the north end of Snohomish County, we have the Regional Apprenticeship Program, which is a program that's immersed in high school. So the kids in high school can do their last 2 years of high school in essentially a trades program, and they can learn how to weld, and they can learn electrical skills, they can learn building skills, they can learn trade skills. So when they get out of school, they can go straight into a trade and be making a good family wage job. So as far as making schools more affordable, we need to essentially stop subsidizing it so much, because if you subsidize it too much, that just makes it more and more expensive. So the more money the state puts into it, the more the schools are going to be making. One of the problems that I see with UW is that they have too many out of state students because they make more money off of them. And so we do really need to keep tuition down, and we need to watch the costs associated with the school programs.
Thank you. Clyde Shavers, would you please answer the question?
Of course, I want to say thank you very much, everyone, for coming here today and listening to us talk and share about our background, experiences, and values. So I share in Greg Gilday's advice on ensuring that high school students are exposed to different types of trades, mostly in the public service sector. So we're talking about law enforcement and firefighters, plumbers, water management, electricians, steel metal workers, and sheet metal workers. And the way we do that is to collaborate with school boards, school districts, collaborate with the local small businesses, and also collaborate with labor unions. Labor unions are a great source of knowledge, experience, and they already have great tracks for young adults who are interested in these sorts of jobs to smoothly transition into these public service oriented jobs. So I think we need more collaboration on the state level and to encourage young people to be involved. Thank you.
For position 2, let's go with Karen Lesetmoe. Same question. You're muted, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, League of Women Voters and the Snow Isle Library Systems, for having us be able to get together and share our ideas. I have a daughter. I have a daughter right now in high school, and so we are keenly aware of all of these programs and apprenticeship programs that we currently have here available to our students. There are many great programs available for those that cater to each individual student's talents, whether it be academic to go to college, or being entrepreneurs and going into trades like plumbing and metalwork and things like that. I think what we really need to look at is make sure that there are our small businesses are protected so that they are able to do their jobs and be able to continue having apprenticeship programs.
Thank you. And Dave Paul, same question.
Thank you, Carla. And thanks again to the League of Women Voters and the Snow Isle Libraries for hosting this. So this is a great question and something I care a lot about. So I work at Skagit Valley College when I'm not in the legislature, and I've really focused on listening how to make college more affordable and help better connect students to what vocational trainings are available in apprenticeship programs. So we've made, for the first time in state history, we've made Running Start free in the summer. We've never been able to have that before. We're working to help make college in the high school, which also lets students earn college credit while they're still in high school, make that free for needy families. And then, we really have more work to do on the career and technical exploration side to help connect people with those family wage jobs that are available right out of high school that don't cost a college education. And I'm excited to work with our advisory teachers at the K-12 level to help better connect students to those jobs.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, we'll go to question number 2. Our citizens and students are increasingly struggling with mental health issues. How will you expand mental health services in the 10th Legislative District? And we're going to start with position 2 this time and start with Dave Paul.
Oh, thank you, Carla. So this is such a good question. We have so many students that are struggling right now with mental health issues. And, I have seen this in the 14 years I've lived in Oak Harbor. We have saw an increase during the Great Recession, and I thought that was going to ebb after the Great Recession, and it did not. And so as we had students and families struggling with COVID, I reached out to educators and reached out to mental health professionals to talk about ways of trying to improve youth mental health in our community. And we, working with Island County officials and public health officials, came up with a pilot program that secured money from the legislature that brings together K-12 schools, brings together community-based organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters, and Island County is implementing that right now. And what I'm really proud of our work is that we actually talk to young people, had forums, listen to them to find out what they wanted, and heard some really important feedback. So young folks would like to be able to talk to somebody who isn't necessarily a counselor. They don't like that stigma. So how can we help get teachers potentially training and get peer-to-peer mentorships so that folks have an opportunity to talk to somebody and be able to talk to somebody before things reach a crisis point. So I'm really excited that that program was funded by the legislature and that is rolling out right now.
Thank you. Karen Lesetmoe, same question to you. Unmute, please.
Hi, thank you, Carla. Mental health is very important, and I do appreciate the efforts that our schools are making towards those that are youth that are in need of mental health. But I would like to make sure that we do have parental involvement in these, and that we be completely transparent, because I think the dangers that we have is that when we're involved with our students and their mental health, in absence of parental oversight, we may get into worse conditions than what we originally were trying to solve.
Thank you. For position 1, let's hear from Clyde Shavers, please.
Thank you. This is a critical question. Washington State is bottom 5 in terms of funding for mental health services. And so my fiance is a special education teacher, kindergarten through 5th grade. And so she sees the lack of mental health support in these schools, especially in special needs programs. And as a board member for Skagit Friendship House, I see mental health issues all the time, every week, being unanswered. So we need to provide more resources, mental health experts and professionals in schools, especially special needs programs, and also in police departments as well. So they have social workers so they can handle the unique situations in each location that requires someone that knows that mental health background. Thank you.
Thank you. And Greg Gilday.
Well, thank you for that question, Carla. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but yes, we do need to increase support of mental health services in the state. As Representative Paul pointed out, COVID really exacerbated the mental health crisis that we're having in the state. And, my wife teaches 2nd grade in Mount Vernon, and some of the stories that she tells me of the students and the issues that they're going through, even at that young age, it's pretty alarming. And so we need to increase the availability of mental health counseling in K through 12 schools, and also just in the public in general. That's why I was proud to support the Chwalik Center in Anacortes and the good work that it does, because it has shown that its system actually does work, and we need to scale that up. And the reason why this is so important to do is that so many of the state's other issues stem from the issues that we're having with mental health. So that goes into homelessness, that goes into drug addiction, and so many other issues that we are having. So we do need to address this because it's the root cause of a lot of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we will go to question number 3. Housing prices and rents are continuing to increase, and affordable housing is often not affordable for the average person or family. What do you propose to alleviate housing costs for Washington residents? And we'll go with position 1, Clyde Shavers.
Thank you. So as a board member, like I said, for the Skagit Friendship House, a homeless shelter, and also as a board member for South Whidbey's Goosefoot, I am intimately aware and concerned about the unaffordability of housing, especially for young people. We just purchased some parcels of land in Langley, and we realized that it's expensive, very expensive for nonprofits and for other permanent supportive housing nonprofits to actually build these facilities, these units. So as a state, our duty, our responsibility is to break down these barriers, to encourage and incentivize these nonprofits and other developers to actually want to build affordable housing. So that means that creating waivers or tax exemptions for units and facilities that are deemed affordable. The other thing is we got to make sure that these units are sustainable in terms of affordability. It doesn't make sense to build a facility for 1 or 2 years and then it becoming unaffordable. So the state needs to make sure that we break down these barriers and continue to work towards ensuring everyone has the ability to purchase or rent. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Gilday, same question.
Thank you, Carla. As the ranking member of the Housing Committee, I deal with this a lot down in Olympia. And, you were right. We don't have a lot of affordable housing in the state. We have subsidized housing and we have expensive housing. And so if you look at the latest study, we're about 250,000 housing units short in this state of where we should be. And to put that in perspective, if we wanted to just reach the average of the nation, we'd have to build 190,000 home units just to become average with the rest of the country. Home ownership is how we build generational wealth. And so if we want to be able to get people into homes, we need to make homes affordable to build. And part of that is, as a legislature, stop them implementing regulations that increase the cost that it takes to build a home. For every $1,000 in cost of a home, 2,500 families are priced out of the market. Right now, the median home price is $522,000 in Washington. That prices out 74% of the families out there. We need to do more to reduce regulation, to get developers out there so they can build homes that we need for affordable housing.
Thank you. For position 2, Let's hear from Karen Lesetmoe, please.
Thank you, Carla. Well, this is right in my wheelhouse. Being in real estate, I am in agreement with Greg Gilday. From my perspective, being boots on the ground, helping people try to find housing, I just want to make it clear that we make sure that we differentiate between affordable housing and subsidized housing. And so what I want to make sure is that, just like Greg Gilday says, home ownership is the key to generational wealth. And so part of what makes home ownership so beautiful is that the citizen has skin in the game because they own their own home and it is their investment, and they can do with it what they want, whether they want to keep it as a long-term investment and be able to retire in it, or they can have it as a way to help their families. So basically, as the way that we can solve that is to make sure that housing is cheap, it's not expensive to build, that we have plenty of middle housing. Oh, my time's up. And but thank you.
Thank you very much. And Dave Paul, same question, please.
Thank you, Carla. So what a great question. And when I ran for office 4 years ago, one of the top 3 concerns I had was housing affordability. I continue to hear that to this day. And we've had such an influx of folks into our state that it really has driven up the average cost of a home. And we've got to focus on ways of helping folks build houses that are in the smaller range that are less than that average cost. And the work like that Habitat for Humanity is doing is really important, but there's no silver bullet to solve this issue. It's a lot of different things that we can do. One of which can be trying to help cities and counties directly with the planning process so that we can help lower the cost to actually to develop and make those smaller homes. And we can also be looking at regulations that might help with accessory dwelling units, might help with duplexes and triplexes in communities where they have bus lines and other services that would be of help to families.
Thank you very much. We go to question number 4. Do you have confidence in our state and local election system? And if not, then specifically, why not? And for position 2, we'll start with Karen Lesetmoe, please. You have 90 seconds.
I do have confidence in our state and local election system. I do believe that we should make sure that we maintain high visibility and transparency in the process.
Thank you. Dave Paul?
Thank you, Carla. What a great question. And yes, so we've got a really unique system in Washington State that we've got mail-in voting, which creates a paper trail so we can actually see those ballots as they come in. And in our county election officials, we've got county election officials of both parties across our state, and they're working to make sure that folks are that our elections have integrity. It's really disappointing to hear all the talk among a minority of folks that these elections aren't safe, and that there's voter fraud when time and time again that's been demonstrated not to be the case. It really hurts our democracy when if you lose an election, you blame the system instead of the fact that every election there's going to be a winner, and every election there's going to be somebody who doesn't get to win. So yes, I'm pleased with our system, and I think that our elected official auditors are doing a great job.
Thank you. For position 1, let's hear from Greg Gilday.
Thank you for that question, Carla. Yes, I do have faith in our election system here in the state of Washington. I believe that we went about going to an all-mail voting system the correct way. We started small, worked out the kinks, and then expanded it towards statewide. And so I do have it. That being said, like every other system, when you have a system that's built by people that has a lot of moving parts, there's the opportunity to have shenanigans. And we always need to be on the lookout for ways to improve our system. It's always going to be a work in progress. There's always something else that we're going to be able to do to help make our system more secure or more transparent. Because frankly, one of the worst things that we can have with our electoral system is just the appearance of shenanigans happening and not being able to show that it was a clean and fair election. I think that we need to be able to audit it, absolutely. And I think that this shouldn't be a partisan issue, that everyone wants free and fair elections. But yes, I have faith in our election system.
Thank you. And Clyde Shavers.
Yeah, so I have absolute faith in our elections. I share Dave Paul's sentiment that our democracy is undergirded by the public's confidence that our elections are fair, that our elections are true. I served as the 2020 Voter Protection Director for the state, and I have personal experience, personal knowledge, and understanding the intricacies of our unique election system. So I have full confidence in our election. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's look at question number 5. In light of the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs and Justice Thomas's concurring opinion, would you introduce or vote for, if introduced, legislation protecting women's right to abortion, along with same-sex marriage and full access to contraception in Washington state? And we'll start with position 1, Greg Gilday.
All right, thank you for that question, Carla. Although I think it's an odd question because those are already all codified in the state of Washington. And so I don't think we need any extra laws to protect those. And so it's, I've been doorbelling with a lot of people lately. And what I found is that the issue of abortion, frankly, isn't at the top of the mind of most voters out there. Most people are more worried about inflation and public safety. Most people understand that the decision in Dobbs didn't outlaw abortion, and that it's going to change nothing in Washington, because in 1991 we had a citizens initiative that codified essentially the holding in Roe, and so it's already law of the land. Now, a couple of things that other people have brought up is I don't support the governor's call for a constitutional amendment to protect abortion, because again, we already have it codified in the state law. And the Washington State Constitution actually has a much stronger right to privacy protection than does the federal Constitution. However, I do agree with Governor Inslee's call for the state troopers to not, or the state patrol to not assist in outside the state investigations, because law enforcement stretched so thin already that this would not be a good use of their time.
Thank you. Clyde Shavers, the question goes to you.
I think this is a very important question, and I disagree. I think women's rights is very important in a lot of people's minds right now, going door to door throughout this district. I am 100% in support for a woman's freedom to choose and to make her own decisions. I strongly condemn the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Since 1970, it's true, abortions have been legal. And every time it's been on a statewide ballot initiative, every 4 times it's been approved. So I think what's important is to know that we are always only one election away from losing women's rights if we elect a anti-choice candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. For position 2, let's hear from Dave Paul.
Oh, thank you, Carla. So with all due respect, and I see when I'm talking to voters at the door, this is one of the top 3 issues I'm hearing, and folks are very concerned about this. I'm hearing from women, I'm hearing from members of the LGBT community, really concerned about the attack on the right to privacy, which has been established over 50 years in our country. And as Clyde said, in Washington State, those could be taken away with a different state legislature. So I support amending our Constitution to protect these in the Constitution, so that we don't have a narrow minority be able to strip these away.
Thank you. And Karen Lesetmoe.
Thank you, Carla. Gosh, what a loaded question. And as a woman and as a female veteran, I'm very well aware of, the issues at hand with abortion and the right to choice. But just like Greg Gilday said, abortion is basically a non-issue when it comes to Washington State. It's not going anywhere. And like Clyde Shavers said, every time it's come up, it's always been voted yes. And so it's what the people want here in Washington. And so for me, I want to focus on the things that make a woman's choice to be more available to them so that they can decide and have better education, better jobs, and have the financial ability to be able to make a choice from a position that they don't feel that it's necessary.
Thank you. And with that, we will go to question number 6, and this is our final question. What role should the legislature play in addressing the effects of climate change and emergency preparedness? And for position 2, let's start with Dave Paul. 90 seconds.
Thank you, Carla. This is a great question. So when I ran for office 3 years ago, one of the top 3 reasons I ran was protecting our quality of life and addressing climate change. And that's an issue that affects all corners of our district and all corners of our state, from farmers that are seeing the impact of climate change on their crops to, the last several summers we've been choked with wildfire smoke. So our legislature has done some really good work to help move us to 100% clean energy grid, to help address the size of carbon in our transportation budget. So one of the reasons I'm excited about the hybrid ferries that are in the Move Ahead Washington budget is that those are going to be cleaner burning and will actually also help with earthquake resilience, so that if we have both the ability to run those on diesel, but also to potentially have those fully charged batteries on shoreside to act as a power source. One of the reasons I asked 2 years ago to join the Community and Economic Development Committee was to have a larger role in emergency preparedness, and that's something our committee works on. Just in the last month, there's been work on preparing for tsunamis and major earthquakes, and that's really important preparation for our community with so many of us living on islands. So thank you for that question.
Thank you. And Karen Lesetmoe, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Carla. Well, I do believe that we do need to address climate change, but we want to make sure that those things that we do actually do good and don't just sound good. I want to, as you know, in real estate, one of the things that, it doesn't make sense to put $50,000 worth of granite countertops if you're not going to be seeing it, on the other end when you sell it, unless that's what you really want. And so when it comes to our taxpayers, we want to make sure that what we're doing is measurable and something that actually works. So that's going to be my goal, is to make sure that we do that.
Thank you. And for position 1, let's hear from Clyde Shavers.
I think the state needs to play a very large role in environmental protection. I, for about 3 years, worked with the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, in environmental law. And in terms of emergency preparedness, for 2 to 3 years in the Navy, I served in humanitarian disaster relief missions across the Pacific and the Middle East. So I've seen the devastation that can be caused by natural disasters, and also by not really focusing on appropriate environmental protection. And that means that we need to ensure we have a robust electric grid, ensure that we modernize the ferry fleet, modernize our buses. And then it also means that we ensure that we don't forget our workers that are right now in steel mills or coal plants or power plants, and so that we can bring them along. The important thing is environmental protection needs to be a robust, comprehensive, but most importantly, a collaborative effort towards moving towards the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Greg Gilday.
Thank you, Carla. Climate change and emergency preparedness in 60 seconds. Here we go. So first off, I think we need to really set performance standards so we can measure the effectiveness of our policies, because without measuring, we're not really doing anything. You can't manage it if you don't measure it. And we need to be able to effectively measure our policies and put more money towards the policies that are doing well, so we can get more bang for our buck, because that's not only good fiscal responsibility, that's environmental responsibility. And for an example for that, both my seatmate and Mr. Shavers brought up the ferry system and electrifying the ferry system. Well, in 2019, I mean, we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to electrify the ferry system. In 2019, the ferries put out about 180,000 metric tons of CO2 in the air, which sounds like a lot. But in contrast to that, wildfires in the state average on a yearly basis 7.85 million metric tons of carbon into the atmosphere. Would we be better off spending those hundreds of millions of dollars managing our forest properly? I think that's a good discussion to have.
Okay, thank you. It's now time for closing statements, and we'll go in alphabetical order by position. So for position 1, let's start with Greg Gilday, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters and Snow Isle Library System for putting on tonight's forum. It's been a wonderful opportunity to be here. These past 2 years have been unlike any time down in Olympia. I mean, I spent my first session down in Olympia, and I say down with quotes on it because I was behind 4 computer screens in a windowless cubicle here in Stanwood. And that's not how we were meant to be governed. Earlier this year, during this year's session, I was allowed down in Olympia, but the public wasn't. Again, this is not how we were meant to be governed in the state. And so with your vote, I'm going to continue to work for good jobs, good schools, and good government. I'm going to remember that education is our #1 priority in the state. Under the Constitution, it is our paramount duty, and we need to fund our K-12 education system in a way that benefits the students as well as the skilled trade pathways. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to fight efforts to raise taxes. We didn't talk about the budget tonight, but we do not have a revenue problem in the state. In fact, the latest budget forecast added another $1.5 billion to our budget. And so we have a spending problem. We need to be able to better prioritize our spending and live within our means. The third thing is I'm going to continue to fight for emergency powers reform. Today, if you didn't know, is day 862 of this emergency declaration, and there is no end in sight. We aren't meant to be ruled by proclamation. The governor does need the ability to declare an emergency, but after a reasonable amount of time, the legislature needs to be brought in. We are the people's representatives, and we need to have a say in how long emergencies are ongoing. The last thing I'll bring up is I'm going to work across the aisle and listen to all parties. I have had an open door policy, and I will continue to have an open door policy when I'm back down in Olympia, because I believe that we can discuss the issues rationally and come to better outcomes. We're not going to agree on everything, but that's okay. So to learn more, you can visit my website, greggilday.com. Again, my name is Greg Gilday. I'm running for the State House of Representatives for the 10th Legislative District, Position 1, and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you and have a wonderful night.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Clyde Shavers. You have 2 minutes.
I just want to say first, thank you again, everyone, for being here and listening to us. You know, as we all know, America is more divided than ever before, with our freedoms being taken away, eroded, with the cost of groceries, gas, and housing rising. We're seeing our country and our district being torn apart. So let's walk away from the politics of the past. Let's walk away from the past where there's divisiveness and ugliness, and let's usher in a new generation of young public servants, veterans, young public leaders who defended America's freedom, who said, you know, I will fight for you so you don't have to give up your life, who care about affordable housing and quality healthcare, a cleaner environment for sustainable fishing and farming, and good education for every child in every zip code. So I asked each and every one of you to vote for the candidate who exemplifies lifelong service, who's done everything he or she can from the moment graduation from high school. Someone who, like me, who graduated from the Naval Academy, served in the Navy, whose father is a Marine, retired as a police officer, who grew up in a family of service. So this year, a lot is on the line, a lot is at stake. So I ask each and every one of you to not vote for a party, but vote for the right candidate that you believe in. My name is Clyde Shavers. I'm running for State Representative Position 1 in the 10th Legislative District, and I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And for position 2, we begin with Karen Lesetmoe.
Oh, thank you, Carla, and thank you, the League of Women Voters, and thank you to the library, Snow Isle Library, for hosting this. For those that don't know me, I'm Karen Lesetmoe, and I'm running to be, in position 2 for House of Representatives. My little bit of my background, I immigrated from the Philippines when I was 6 years old with just a suitcase and no toys. But with hard work and dedication, my family grew to become successful. And so I don't just believe in the American dream, I'm proof of it. And I'm running because I feel that that American dream is being threatened right now. And it's being threatened by decisions that are making life here in Washington less affordable and less safe. And so as a licensed real estate broker, it's my job to keep a pulse on our communities. And so I know when communities are thriving because A, those are the ones in most demand. They look for the communities with the best schools. They look for communities that are safe, and they look for communities that are affordable. They want the most bang for their buck. And so when I see more and more Washington residents moving out of our state because they've lost hope in our current political climate, I know that something is definitely wrong. And as a United States veteran, I'm fighting for our freedom and for our Constitution is in our blood. And so I will also fight for you. And I appreciate the time that you guys have to be able to hear us speak and hear and I thank all of the other candidates that are here today, Clyde and Greg and Dave. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more.
Thank you. And we close with Dave Paul.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Snow Isle Libraries for hosting this event. It's so important to have that civic dialogue. So folks, I'm Representative Dave Paul, and it's such an honor to serve in the legislature. I know many of the folks that are on tonight's call, but if I haven't met you yet, I'm a parent, I'm an educator, and a husband, and my family and I live in Oak Harbor, and I've worked at Skagit Valley College for the last 14 years. And when I ran 4 years ago, it was to help ensure that all residents in our community would be represented. And I've worked really hard to listen to residents and to hear their concerns and then advocate for solutions to help address those concerns. And I hope that voters can trust that I'll do just that for another 2 years. Most of my legislative ideas have come from constituents, but I'm hearing a lot about affordability. I'm proud that we worked this past session on making sure our ports are running smoothly and to get ships out of Holmes Harbor. Folks are very concerned about that. We've worked on healthcare affordability, ending emergency room surprise visit charges, and in helping with prescription drug costs. I really care about college affordability and want to make sure that folks have the opportunity to have living wage jobs without going into student debt. And I've worked very closely with K-12 public educators and constituents and parents throughout our district to help make sure our students are prepared for the jobs of tomorrow. Your first question was terrific tonight. Trade schools and apprenticeship programs and community college programs are also a key component to making sure that our students are prepared for the jobs of tomorrow. We need leaders that are going to work across party lines to make sure that our communities are safer, and I'm proud of the work I've been doing with our sheriffs and police chiefs on that. Again, I'm Dave Paul. It's been such an honor to serve, and I hope I can earn your vote to serve another 2 years. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Greg Gilday, Clyde Shavers, Karen Lesetmoe, and Dave Paul. We appreciate your participation. And now we will transition to the Q&A for the candidates for County Commissioner, District 3. County commissioners are charged with overseeing county operations, financial and budgetary matters, and the adoption of laws that regulate county growth, health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Now we will begin with the questions. And with question number 1, low-income transitional housing has been controversial in Island County, impacting neighborhoods and tourism accommodations. What do you propose to alleviate homelessness in Island County while finding a balance for these concerns? And we'll begin with Timothy Hazelo.
Cool, unmuted. Well, first of all, I want to thank you guys, like everybody else has. Carla, it's good to see you again. I did a forum with you a couple of years ago, and it was very enjoyable. For my first one, I was really nervous back then. You know, this is a tough situation because there are people in need, and people in need, well, they need help, don't they? The problem is, if we just keep throwing money at a situation and hoping that it goes away, what we end up doing is creating a larger situation, exasperating that situation, so to speak. I can tell you right now that I don't know any conservative out there that wants to just kick a person to the curb, or they keep on saying, you know, throw grandma off the cliff or anything like that. We're compassionate people. Myself, I've taken 4 homeless people into my home over the last 20 some odd years and tried to help them along. 2 of them were very successful in that process, and 2 of them not so much. But the thing is that we have to give these people hands up. We have to train them. We have to teach them. We have to give them the opportunities and the abilities to grow and become productive citizens. And just giving them a house, just giving them housing first is what the term is, isn't it? Housing first has failed. It's failed across our nation, from New York to Seattle, and it's failing everywhere it's tried. So we have to find a way to help these people get on their feet and help them stay on their feet, rather than just giving them a place to continue to be down in the doldrums. And so
I'm sorry, your time is up.
that's perfect. Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Janet St. Clair, please. And you're muted.
Thank you, Carla. And again, thank you to the League of Women Voters and Snow Isle Libraries. And this is a very timely question, as we will be taking a vote on the project in Freeland at Harbor Inn tomorrow. And you ask, how do you balance these concerns? And I think that's a really critical question, because it really is about listening to all the voices in the room and taking time and process to make sure we're hearing about all of the concerns, addressing the facts and the questions, addressing the questions with facts, such as whether or not housing increases crime, which many studies have proven not. When we do transitional and supportive housing, from NIH to Stanford to Cornell, they all have demonstrated that housing actually often decreases crime and improves communities. So we need to listen to the questions, answer them clearly and with good data and research, and then welcome people where it's appropriate in our communities.
Thank you. And the question goes now to Rick Hannold.
Good evening, and I want to thank real quickly the League of Women Voters and Snow Isle Libraries for the invitation to this. Yes, this is a very controversial subject, and one that's near and dear to my heart. When we're talking about housing situations and transitional or whatnot, and or subsidized housing, I firmly believe that there are people that need a hand up. And one of the things I need to do is applaud the Board of Commissioners for the work that is going on with the lot up off of Old Oak Harbor Road, where that's going to be in perpetuity housing development for those that are working, but just lower income and working to better their lives. When it comes to homelessness, the situation that they've got going with the hotel they're looking at voting on tomorrow down in Freeland, there were a lot of issues in with that were especially concerning, especially the initial contract is stated it was to be low. Oh, okay, thank you.
Next, we go to question number 2. What has Island County accomplished so far in providing mental health services? And how can mental health providers' outreach to youth and children be improved? And the question goes first to Janet St. Clair, and you have 90 seconds.
Thank you for this question. It is truly near and dear to my heart. I was a social worker for 30 years, a child mental health specialist, and launched and developed many programs in this area. I'm going to begin by giving a big shout out to Dave Paul, because the proviso that we just got from the state legislature specifically for youth mental health, and specifically geared to not what we thought they needed, but what the community and the children and the youth said they felt was important in their lives. So peer groups, supports, already seeing that money go to work in Stanwood community with some peer group work happening to provide better emotional support. We had to downsize some of our outpatient or locally based programs in COVID, but we immediately pivoted to providing critical outreach services during the pandemic when they were most needed, serving hundreds of people.
Thank you. The question goes to Rick Hannold now. You have 60 seconds.
Yes, as far as mental health providers and the outreach to youth and children, the state legislature has been addressing the situation in schools K through 12, and I believe that's a good place to start. But I also believe that this is something that needs to be addressed in the home and in the church. The parents need to have the ability and the involvement in their children's life to know what's going on with them. And I think we would possibly be much better served to see some actual mental health providers available in the county, where there's an extreme lack of especially youth providers and even providers for our veterans, for people with older people, not just our youth. So I think we need to look at a way of incentives or inviting people in to come and actually open and work the services here in the county.
Thank you. And the question now goes to Tim Hazelo.
Yeah, great, thanks. That's a great question, actually. I had a son that had some mental issues back in the day, back in the early 2000s. And we brought that son of mine to the hospital in Coopville. And it didn't work out so well. He didn't get the treatments he needed, and we ended up losing him. So it's really near and dear to my heart that we take care of this issue while the children are young, because when they become adults, it's an ingrained thing. It moves people to a different point of life where they're not as easily influenced as they are when they're young. So I do believe that it starts in the home. I do believe it starts in your churches. I know Janet's a church dean or something. She's on the church over there. She knows how the churches work over there. They help these people. The thing we have to remember is it starts in the youth. And we as a county, as county commissioners, we can't be solely focused on just budgets. We have to be focused on everything that's going on with our communities, our children, our parents, our grandparents, our farms. I have to watch my pigs so they don't get out, for goodness gracious. There's a lot of stuff as county commissioners we have to do. And if we focus on one thing, we'll fall behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to question number 3. In the last few years, we have experienced record-setting heat and other extreme weather events, wildfires, and severe smoke. How will you work on issues of climate change and emergency preparedness? And the question goes first to Rick Hannold, and you have 90 seconds.
Yes, well, as far as climate change, I was listening to what Greg Gilday said earlier. Nobody, I believe, will argue the fact that the climate is changing, and that there are extreme ends from one to the other that are happening in our world nowadays. The question is, how do we go about preparing for it? And I firmly believe that we should not be just throwing money at issues as far as for measures to take in our local community. The state has already declared their own legislation and granted different things that need to be done for climate change. The federal government needs to be is also involved in climate change and increasing regulations and such. But we need to be careful about how far we go. We don't need to be sitting back and going to such an extreme of regulation. We just had a discussion about affordable housing. I spoke with the Washington Builders Association president the other day, and also a member of SICBA who's on their executive board. And just the new regulations that the governor and the legislature put in place in the last couple of years that are going to come down the road are going to add anywhere from $85,000 to $100,000 to the average cost for your average home. We need to be careful how we move forward. As far as preparing for an emergency preparedness, we've got a robust emergency preparedness unit in the county already that started when I was last in office.
Time is up. The question now goes to Timothy Hazelo. Timothy Hazelo? Hello? Okay, he may be having some technology difficulties. Let's go to Janet St. Clair and perhaps he can untangle his tech.
Thank you,
I'm back.
Carla. And are you back, Tim? Tim, you wanna go? Why don't you go ahead?
Go ahead. I'll wait.
Carla, what do you want to do?
Go ahead, Janet. You can go ahead.
Okay, and I apologize for the weird lighting. I'm getting the sunset on the windows of the house across from me, shining right in my face. So anyway, thank you for this question. I think it's a great question. This has been a focus of my leadership. I wrote and led the effort to procure a grant to address and update our greenhouse gas emission study, which was completed in 2021. We're working to move those recommendations into a work plan to better increase resiliency in Island County. With sea level rise, emergency or changing temperatures and extreme weather events, it is irresponsible not to address climate change. We must build our resiliency and strategies to protect our future. These include protecting as well things like our forest canopy to protect our aquifer recharge and sequestration. It is also as simple as supporting sustainable agriculture and all of the things we need to do to make sure Island County stays safe for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now that you're back, go ahead, Timothy, as well.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't really know anybody who is a climate denier, as it's been said. Everybody knows, anybody with a brain and eyes to see and skin to feel knows that the climate is changing. The question is what can we do about it, and what should we do about it, right? Somebody had said that the federal government and the state government are working hard on this. In Island County, we do a pretty darn good job. There's not a lot of waste here in Island County. Our disposal systems are pretty good. You know, if we go out, the problem is our infrastructure hasn't caught up with all this electricity that they want to demand. And so if we go switching everything over to electric, and I know we want to lower the carbon footprint and so on and so forth. The volcano down in Tonga, for goodness gracious, put out more carbon monoxide than the human species did over the last 8 years. So the point is, we can do things, we can be smart, but we have to do things that give us a result. We can't just waste money and not move forward.
Time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, we go to question number 4. How can the Growth Management Act regulations accommodate open space and rural character while determining parameters for housing development? And we'll start with Rick Hannold, and you have 90 seconds.
Okay, thanks, Carla. Yes, the Growth Management Act regulations. When we were talking about affordable housing, one of the biggest things that we can do to help make homes more affordable is to get the state to realize that the Growth Management Act is not a one-size-fits-all document. Okay, we want to accommodate open space and rural character. That's the number one goal of, or one of the big goals of our comprehensive plan here in this community. I think what we need to do, and what would help is, besides giving more flexibility to the counties, the individual counties, as far as how the Growth Management Act is implemented in their counties. I think that the cities and towns need to seriously take a look at, if we're going to talk affordable, making homes and such more affordable for people, is to look at going up a little more and not out. We can't continue to expand UGAs and sit back and keep our rural character. And then I sit back and I wonder sometimes, and then this is nothing against builders or realtors, but I wonder sometimes how much is enough. We're sitting back and we're growing exponentially. And if we keep growing at the rate we are, we're going to lose that rural character. So there needs to be a definite balancing act. And I think one of the biggest things we can do is work with the cities and towns and look at height requirements for number one.
Thank you very much. Question now goes to Janet St. Clair, and you have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. So I think under the Growth Management Act, clearly the intention was to protect over development, and as Mr. Hannold said, to make sure that we protect our rural character and keep our county as we most love it. There are strategies within that we should be pursuing. One of them we passed this last year with adding ADUs, accessory dwelling units, into our planning. Place for grandma to step down and find a place to live while maybe her family moves into the main house, or they're able to rent out their main house, maybe rent out their main house and lease their farm, so we keep that property in agriculture. We need to incentivize and do cluster development, which means you take, say, a 10-acre parcel, you cluster the development maybe for middle housing, like we talked about earlier, and protect the open space. And we need to encourage incentives for agriculture, voluntary stewardship programs, forest stewardship, drainage, and things like that to keep keep Island County as we love it today.
Thank you. And next to Timothy Hazelo.
Yeah, perfect. You know, this is a big question, and this is a very serious question, because in all my literature I talk about the flora and fauna. When I'm all over Camano Island, one of the #1 concerns over on Camano Island, it's not high-speed internet. It's not, a lot of times it's not even the environment so much as this. They want the rural lifestyle. They want the flora and fauna. They want to know that their backyard isn't going to be clear cut and have a sky-rise apartment building put in. And so I've talked to hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And the point is, there are ways to do this. I have a small 5-acre lot on North Whidbey, and I've got about 3 acres of woods on that 5 acres. I choose to leave it there because I believe that our island is more beautiful in its natural setting. With that being said, though, we do have to figure out how to grow, and we do have to figure out how to let our children live here. Right now, my kids can't afford to live here. And so I think it goes to regulation. Reduce some regulation, make housing affordable, and then we will keep our rural communities.
Thank you. Let's go to question number 5. Would you favor eliminating the loopholes that allow clear-cutting residential property? And the question goes first to Timothy Hazelo, and you'll have 90 seconds.
Ouch, you're killing me here, Carla. This is a question that's tough. I mean, just in the last 4 years, and you've driven up and down the islands, there is a lot of clear cutting going on, and it doesn't make things pretty. And then the trees that they leave up along the roadside are susceptible to the wind and the damage. And then you've got to balance into property rights of the individuals who own the property. There's a lot going on here rather than just throwing out a, hey, you can clear cut or you can't clear cut. Personal property rights are huge. Some people live and die by those personal property rights. Other people think that I live next to you, so I should be able to decide what you do on your property. I think there's a fine line, and it all has to do with zoning and coding. And once you get into that zoning and coding, you really, really need to be specific about what a person can and can't do on that property. And they need to know that before they buy that property, before they start to build, before they start to clear cut. And with that being said, I want people to keep their homes and their properties natural. I encourage it. I love my natural property. Heck, I don't even know the last time I walked all the way back to the back of the woods because it's so thick back there. But we need to keep this flora and fauna. And especially on Camano Island, it's so beautiful. Our communities on Camano Island, they have peace and quiet, they have public safety, they have everything they want, and they don't want to lose it to a big development with little apartments.
Thank you. The question goes next to Rick Hannold.
All right, clear cutting residential property. I'm not certain if you're talking about where people get permits to come in and they cut to supposedly be harvesting, and then they want to transition it into residential property, or if you're talking people with residential and they've already got residences on them and they just want to clear off their land. They say they've got a 5-acre lot or whatever the case may be. If that's the case, people have the right. I have a firm belief that people have the right to do with their property what they wish. That being said, forestation and the clear cutting, a lot of the clear cutting such as Tim was just mentioning along Highway 20, those are regulated by the Department of Natural Resources. And those permits, sometimes when people think that there's a lot of clear cutting going on, some of those permits have been issued a couple of years prior, because once they're issued, they've getting so much time to do it. Harvesting is part of what we need to do to keep our forest healthy, but the replanting and the rejuvenation of those areas needs to be firmly enforced.
Thank you. And Janet St. Clair, same question, 60
Well,
seconds.
I love this question because I've been working on this issue for the last 4 years. I've been working, it's a cross-jurisdictional issue with DNR, so we have to work together. I have a meeting with them next week. It's important that we work to support the sustainable timber harvesting and encouraging replanting, and that means enforcing moratoriums. This county has a history of letting people out of their 6-year moratoriums and enabling them to say, I'm going to do a timber harvest, which allows a bigger harvest, and then changing their minds, and we, quote, get them into compliance, allowing that reforestation never occurs, and that property is then moved into conversion. There's also an effort in the county to, or I'm leading an effort with San Juan County to enforce the 40-acre rule in counties made up entirely of islands. We have a developer out of actually British Columbia who's about 156 acres, trying to break it into 6 separate LLCs and then timber the whole property instead of timber harvest the whole property instead of respecting that 40-acre rule. We have to protect our forests in Island County.
Thank you. And now we go to question number 6 and the last question. If elected, what are your priorities? And the question goes first to Janet St. Clair, and you get 90 seconds.
This is such a hard question for me because my top priority is really listening to my constituents, identifying the issues that matter most to them, and then working on those issues. So whereas we start with the set of promises we make, and I've worked to fulfill those promises, what comes at us every single day in our offices, on the phone, as we work in the community, is what matters to our constituents. So for me, it's been addressing flooding, king tides and shoreline threats, infrastructure issues, as well as my continued work on broadband, as I mentioned, on forest protections, on mental health and housing, and on healthcare. I worked hard to protect against the closure of Whidbey Health, and I'll continue to make sure we have access to care and to protect our communities.
Thank you. Next, the question goes to Rick Hannold.
Yes, if I'm brought back into office, my priorities first and foremost is to get our budget back under control. In the last year alone, we've, and I do realize that I'll give you this, that some of this is ARPA money, but in the last year alone, our budget has gone up 17%. I think it's time for the county to come back to providing the essential public services that they're deemed to, not just healthcare and environmental issues. We've got shoulders and drainage systems that need to be maintained. We've got employee morale that is sinking. We've got public safety and law enforcement. I realize that as much as this is a hold up due to the academy and whatnot, but we've got to be working to keep our law enforcement going and going strong. While I was in office last time, we made vast improvements. It was a cohesive and team. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Timothy Hazelo.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, that's a great question. I've been campaigning and going out and knocking on doors. And the one thing that I get from most people is they don't trust the government no more. They don't trust the government that they're going to spend the money the way they need to be spending the money. They don't trust the government that they're going to return their phone calls or answer their questions or be what their constituents think they're going to be. So my number one goal is a transparent and honest government. That's my number one goal in Island County and the communities, and then push that up, making sure that when we do spend money on things, on programs, on procedures, on policies, that it has a result. If it doesn't have a good result, then why do we do it? We just keep throwing good money after bad in that case. And then I love the healthcare system down there. We have to make that work. That is who we are on the Whidbey Island side. But on the Camano side, it's just as important to keep the Stanwood and the Camano clinics and healthcare systems up and running. So we have to make this affordable for people and accessible for people. And I know we can do that at the county level. I've seen other counties do it, and we can do it.
Thank you. We now go to the closing statements for the candidates. You each will have 2 minutes, and in alphabetical order, we'll start with Rick Hannold.
Yes, well, once again, I'd like to real quickly thank the League of Women Voters and the Snow Isle Libraries for having us here. And I want to talk to our public out there and explain to them that this primary is extremely important. A lot of people think it's just a primary, and it's not important to vote. You have 3 candidates that in this primary, this top 2 state. So it's important for you to get out and vote. I'm not going to sit here and spend a lot of time talking about what I did and did not do while I was in office previously. I sat on the board, and we made a lot of good things happen. Even at a recent Old Goats meeting, Commissioner Melanie Bacon even told the crowd there and talked about how good the board was when I was on it previously. And quoting here, she said, "Rick Hannold is the best supervisor I ever had." And I appreciate her for that and acknowledging that. But it all comes down to this, folks. You had me for 4 years. And if you want to see what I accomplished, go to rickhannold.com and you can read up on it, because you can't fit it all in 2 minutes time. But you've got Ms. St. Clair, Commissioner St. Clair. You've had her for a little over 3.5 years now. If you're good with that and want to keep the status quo, fine. Or you've got an unknown candidate and one that's going to have to go in and learn the job. And I think the county needs somebody to come in there with experience and proven leadership, and that person is me. I told you I'm going to sit back and not say anything about everything I did, but I can tell you what I didn't do. I never lied to people while I was in office. I never sat back and was anything but transparent with people when I was in office. Transparency is one of those voter or campaign words that people throw around recklessly. Transparency means being honest, truthful, and open. The government, we need people that can be trusted on the government, and I'm your man. Please vote for Rick Hannold in August 2nd.
Next, Timothy Hazelo.
All right, thanks, Carla. I really appreciate it. Hey, I come from a long family tradition of service to our nation. I knew when I was a young kid riding a bicycle with flags in a private uniform in a parade on the 4th of July that I was going to serve my nation for my entire life. I don't think my wife realized it in '87 when she met me in high school, what she was getting into, but now she knows as well. And so my whole life has been service to our nation, service to our community. Military service, contractor service, volunteer service. I'm at it all the time. There's one thing that nobody can ever dispute is my work ethic. I've done plenty of things. I've been a flight engineer. I've been on combat air crews. I've deployed as a civilian to combat zones all over the world. I've done all kinds of great things. And I tell people all the time that I feel blessed that my nation has given me the opportunity to see and do these great things that I've done. And it's my obligation to continue to give back, to make sure that my children and my grandchildren have the ability to do these things. And so for me, running for office now, I feel like we can do better. I feel like we can do better. And I think going backwards to the old ways of doing things is not going to do us better. It's going to do us harm. And I think that I'm the best choice. I think I'm the best choice because I know the community. I think I'm the best choice because I get along with the community. I answer all questions. I answer all emails. You might not always like the answer I give you, but I always try to get back to everybody. I'm an open book. People know who I am. I wear it on my sleeve. I don't hide things. I'm transparent. And you know what it really comes down to is I like my community. I came here in the mid 90s. My kids grew up here. My grandkids grew up here. I love it here. We're not going anywhere. Go to www.timhazelo4, that's number 4 commissioner.com, and check me out. I hope you like me, and I hope you vote for me, and I ask for your vote and your support. Thanks a lot. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. And Janet St. Clair.
I'll let you catch up here a second. There you go. Oh. You want me to just go?
Yes, go
I'm
ahead,
gonna catch-
Janet.
Okay. So yes, my name is Janet St. Clair. I'm the current county commissioner, and I thank you for hosting this forum. I am asking for your vote again. I've been asked what matters in politics. It's simple. Tell what you will do and then do it. Be respectful, listen, work hard, and stay humble. I've worked to be responsive to the issues raised by my constituents, from protecting our quality of life to problem-solving critical concerns such as shoreline threats and complicated permits. I've worked to improve broadband, healthcare, conservation, veteran services, housing, and mental health. The pandemic only amplified the importance of reliable broadband is critical for our economy, the education of our children, and assuring access to digital health. I led the effort to expand and improve internet for Island County businesses and residents, and we have received over $10 million for projects on Whidbey. Recognizing the childcare challenges faced by working families, I led the effort to ensure families have a safe place for their children. I've also focused on making investments in affordable housing for working families. In 2019, as we discussed, I worked with Washington State Department of Natural Resources to identify and close loopholes that allow for inappropriate clear cuts. As chair of the Board of County Commissioners, I led the county through the first year of the pandemic. We worked to balance public safety and the economy, supporting workers and small businesses, while also stopping the spread of the virus in our county. I've also been able to bring federal and state officials to Island County to meet and problem solve on major infrastructure challenges and threats. Those relationships helped me work to prevent the closure of Whidbey Health. I've made government accessible, accountable, more transparent, with over 40 monthly virtual and in-person town halls. You can find me in the office every day or out meeting with constituents in their homes, businesses, or at community events. I'm respectful and responsive. I work hard and I show up. I'm asking you to trust me for another 4 years so we can continue working together to improve the quality of life we so cherish here in Island County. Thank you for your supporting this forum, and thank you for your vote.
Well, thank you, Rick Hannold, Timothy Hazelo, and Janet St. Clair. We appreciate your participation in this evening's events. That concludes our questions for this evening. Thank you all for attending this event. As for all their contributions to make this virtual events possible, a special thank you to our League co-president and platform manager, Carol Pulliam, for making our virtual forums a success. One final note, ballots begin arriving in the mail after July 15th. If you haven't received a ballot by July 22nd at the latest, contact the auditor's office at 360-679-7366. If you choose to mail your ballot, remember that it must be postmarked on or before Election Day, August 2nd. There are also secure drop boxes located throughout the county where you can drop off your ballot. To find one located near you, go to elections@islandcountywa.gov. If you or someone you know has not yet registered to vote, you can register online until July 25th or in person at the auditor's office up to and by 8 p.m. on Election Day, August 2nd, 2022. Good night and be well.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.